Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, we are diving into one of the greatest novels of the 20th century, Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The main theme of this book is about unrequited love, perhaps one of the most heartbreaking yet profoundly human experiences. It's the kind of love where your heart beats only for someone who doesn't or cannot love you back in the same way. It's a love that thrives on hope, a love that can consume your thoughts, your days, and even your identity. We've all felt it in some form, that longing for someone who feels just out of reach. Maybe it's someone who once loved you but has moved on. Maybe it's someone you have built up in your mind, believing that if you could just be enough, they'd finally see you the way you see them. This is the kind of love that's not only painful but also deeply isolating because no matter how much you give, the feeling isn't returned equally. This is the love that defines Jay Gatsby. His love for Daisy Buchanan isn't just the centerpiece of the Great Gatsby, it's a symbol of unrequited love taken to its most tragic extremes. Gatsby's story shows us how powerful and dangerous it can be to love someone who cannot or will not fully love you back. But Gatsby's love goes beyond unrequited affection. It's a love built on illusions and memories, a dream that has little to do with the reality of who Daisy truly is. And that is what makes this story so compelling because it's not about his feelings for Daisy, it's about how unrequited love shapes his identity, his choices, and ultimately his downfall. This book is a dazzling tale of love, ambition, wealth, and the American dream. It's set in the roaring 1920s, a time of jazz, prohibition, and extravagant lifestyles. So let's unpack this literary masterpiece. The story is narrated by Nick Carraway, a young man who moves to Long Island in the summer of 1922 to work in the bond business. Nick rents a modest house in the West Egg, a fictional town known for its new money. His neighbor is the mysterious and incredibly wealthy Jay Gatsby, who throws lavish parties every weekend. Across the bay lies East Egg, home to the old money elite, including Nick's cousin Daisy Buchanan and her husband Tom. Before we dive into the plot, let me introduce you to the main characters. Jay Gatsby, a self made millionaire with a mysterious past who is deeply in love with Daisy. Daisy Buchanan, Nick's cousin, a beautiful and charming woman married to Tom but is stuck in a loveless marriage. Tom Buchanan, Daisy's wealthy, arrogant, and unfaithful husband. Now that you know the cast, let's get into the story. Nick becomes intrigued by Gatsby, who eventually befriends him. Gatsby reveals that he's been in love with Daisy for years and his extravagant lifestyle is all part of an effort to win her back. Nick arranges for Gatsby and Daisy to reunite, sparking an affair between them. Meanwhile, Tom is having an affair with Myrtle Wilson, the wife of a garage owner, George Wilson. The tension between the characters builds until a dramatic confrontation at a hotel in New York City. Tom exposes Gatsby's shady business dealings and mocks his new money background, asserting his dominance. Daisy, between her love for Gatsby and her loyalty to Tom, chooses to stay with her husband. On the way back to Long Island, Daisy drives Gatsby's car and accidentally hits and kills Myrtle. Gatsby takes the blame, hoping to protect Daisy. Myrtle's husband, George Wilson, devastated and misled into believing Gatsby was driving the car, kills Gatsby before taking his own life. In the end, Gatsby dies alone, his dream of being with Daisy shattered. Nick organizes Gatsby's funeral, but none of the partygoers or so called friends show up. Even Daisy and Tom leave town, escaping the chaos they helped create. Nick, disillusioned by the shallow and selfish nature of the wealthy, decides to leave New York and return to the Midwest. He reflects on Gatsby's unwavering hope and ambition, calling him the most hopeful person he's ever met. At the core of The Great Gatsby is Jay Gatsby's all consuming love for Daisy Buchanan. But this love isn't simple or grounded in reality. It's a dream, a fantasy he's built over years of longing. Gatsby's feelings for Daisy aren't just about as a person, they're about what she represents success, acceptance, and the promise of a perfect life. After losing Daisy to Tom Buchanan, Gatsby didn't move on. Instead, he clung to the memory of her, turning her into a perfect figure in her mind. He spent the next years building a life he believed would make him worthy of her. Every decision he made, his pursuit of wealth, his mansion, his extravagant parties, was driven by the belief that he could recapture the past and win Daisy back. Psychologically, Gatsby's behaviors align with the concept of idealization in relationships. When we idolize someone, we don't see them as they truly are. Instead, we see a version of them that matches our deepest desires. Gatsby didn't love Daisy as a flawed, complex individual. He loved the idea of Daisy, the version of her he had created in his mind. Gatsby believed Daisy was perfect, graceful, pure, and entirely devoted to him. In his mind, their brief love affair during the war was the pinnacle of the romance, and nothing could compare to it. He fantasized about a future where Daisy would leave Tom, choose him, and live a fairy tale life by his side. In this future, Gatsby would finally feel validated not just by Daisy's love but by the world that has once rejected him. To Gatsby, the past wasn't just a memory, it was a destination he could return to. His famous line, "Can't repeat the past? Why, of course you can," reveals his inability to accept that time and people changes. Humans are weird to hold on to hope, even when the odds are against them. For Gatsby, Daisy was his anchor, the one thing that gave his life direction and meaning. Letting go of her would mean losing himself. Now let's look at Daisy. Unlike Gatsby, Daisy isn't chasing a dream. She lives comfortably in her reality, a life of wealth, privilege, and shallow relationships. For Daisy, Gatsby represented a romantic escape, a fleeting passion from her past, but she never shared Gatsby's vision of a perfect future together. Psychologically, Daisy's behavior reflects ambivalence. On one hand, she is drawn to Gatsby's devotion and the excitement he brings. His love makes her feel special, and for a moment, she entertains the possibility of being with him. On the other hand, Daisy is practical and deeply tied to her social status. She knows that leaving Tom, a man who provides her with stability, for Gatsby, whose wealth comes from uncertainty, would be risky. Daisy's actions, flirting with Gatsby but ultimately staying with Tom, reflect her inner conflict. She enjoys being adored by Gatsby, but when she is faced with the choice, she retreats to the safety of her existing life. Gatsby's story mirrors a common psychological struggle in love, the tension between idealism and reality. Many people, like Gatsby, fall in love with an idealized version of someone, believing that love can overcome all obstacles. They may hold on to past memories, inflating them into something larger than life, convince themselves that if they just work harder, become better, or prove their worth, they can win the other person's love. When we place someone on a pedestal, we set ourselves up for a disappointment because we are chasing an illusion, not a person. In the end, Gatsby's love was pure but misguided. It was built on fantasies that could never be realized. Gatsby teaches us that while dreams can inspire us, they can also blind us. Sometimes, the hardest but most necessary step in love is to letting go of the illusion we have created and facing the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The book also explores the emptiness of materialism and the moral decay behind the glistering facade of the Jazz Age. So that's The Great Gatsby, a tragic yet beautiful tale that continues to resonate today. If you have read it, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you haven't, I highly recommend picking it up. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more book content. See you in the next video. Bye bye.